Hello again. There are persistent rumours that King Charles is more enamoured of Islam than he is Christianity. It has even been suggested that he actually is a Muslim. On the face of it, this sounds absurd, but there are some very curious incidents lately which make some of us raise our eyebrows. To begin with, we have to remember that the King is head of the Anglican Church, his position in the Church of England being higher than that of the Archbishop of Canterbury. Look at any coin from your pocket and you'll see that the inscription around the King's head includes the letters FD. This is short for Fidei Defensor, which means defender of the faith in Latin. Ironically, it was the Pope who first awarded this title to Henry VIII for his defence of Catholicism against Martin Luther's rebellious sect. These days, though, it is the Protestant Anglican Church that the monarch defends, or should defend. Charles, though, has never been keen on this idea, and as long ago as 1994 he said that when he became king, he would rather be known as a defender of faith rather than the faith. 2 years later, a rumour emerged in a book called The Riddle and the Night by a man called Giles Milton. I give a link to this book in the description to this video. On page 78 we read the following, apparently said by the Mufti of Cyprus. He allegedly said, "Did you know that Prince Charles has converted to Islam? Yes, yes, he is Muslim. I can't say any more, but it happened in Turkey. Oh yes, he converted all right. When you get home, check on how often he travels to Turkey. You'll find that your future king is a Muslim." Buckingham Palace denies this, of course. Nevertheless, there are tantalising clues scattered about, such as the recent events relating to Ramadan. On February the 25th, 3 days before Ramadan began this year, Charles and his wife went to a kitchen to help pack dates for Muslims to break their fast with at dusk, when the day's fasting ends. The royal Twitter feed said, "Packing dates at Darjeeling Express. Traditionally, dates are eaten as the first food to break the fast at sunset during Ramadan. Their Majesties helped pack dates that will be sent to local hospitals for iftar during the holy month." Iftar is the meal that breaks the fast on the days of Ramadan. A few days later, the king invited any Muslims who wished to do so to share in an iftar meal at St George's Hall in Windsor Castle. A special meal was laid on and Muslim prayers were recited. A muezzin called the faithful to pray. Obviously, this special time for Muslims is of great importance to the king. This is in sharp contrast to his apparent lack of interest in important days in the Christian calendar. 3 days after that meal and prayers in Windsor Castle came Ash Wednesday, which marks the beginning of Lent and the run up to Easter. This is also a period of fasting and self denial, but the king didn't have a word to say on the subject of Lent, and no indication that he fasted on Ash Wednesday. In other words, the fasting of Ramadan was clearly very significant for him. The fasting of Lent didn't even rate a mention. This was more than a little odd when you remember that he is the supreme governor of the Church of England. Then there is the fact that the king often seems to lard his language with phrases and expressions which, in the usual way of things, only a Muslim might be expected to use. Phrases like inshallah, for instance. Devout Christians, sometimes when announcing some plan, end with the letters DV. So they'll send out a leaflet, say, mentioning that some church event is happening, and at the end you'll see DV. DV stands for Deus Volante, God willing. I know some very pious people who say this when talking of any projected future plan, as in, we shall go to the park tomorrow, God willing. This is quite unusual, though, these days. The Arabic, inshallah, means exactly the same, and King Charles does seem to have a habit of muttering this. In the description to this video, I give a link to a clip of film from an event held at Hampton Court connected with Terracotta, a sustainability project. The king moved along a line of people, including the Brazilian ambassador. If you watch and listen carefully from about 3 minutes and 20 seconds, you will hear in fact, if you start at about 3 minutes 10 seconds into the clip of film, at 3 minutes and 20 seconds, you'll hear the king talking about a future event and saying quite clearly, Inshallah. This is a strange expression for the head of the Anglican Church to be throwing around. I'm quite intrigued by the possibility that the monarch might either have converted to Islam or at least be considering doing so, although I confess the idea does strike me as a little far fetched.